everybody? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to my segment, Underrated and Overlooked, where I take a look at movies that I feel are either very underrated or were overlooked at their time of release. Today I'm talking about the 2016 written and directed movie by Richard Linklater, Everybody Wants Some. Now, Richard Linklater has become one of my favorite directors over the last several years. This guy all the movies he makes feel very authentic, real genuine, and a lot of them are coming-of-age movies, which is kind of my bread and butter. I'm a sucker for a coming-of-age movie, so Everybody Wants Some fits perfectly into that because it's kind of like on the last leg of a coming-of-age movie, because usually coming-of-age movies are about kids. This is about a group of guys in college, but it still kind of fits into that same realm. This is kind of like a spiritual sequel to Dazed and Confused, which is one of my all-time favorite movies, probably my favorite from Linklater. And this movie works in a similar fashion. So if you're a fan of that movie, more than likely you'll like this one as well. Essentially what you have here is you have a group of guys that live in a frat house and are all on the college baseball team at a university in Texas. I don't know for sure if they specify if it's actually the University of Texas, but it's in Texas nonetheless. But basically, it's the last weekend of the summer before school starts back, and it's basically these guys just hanging out, partying, trying to get their last bit of fun in before the new year starts. And that doesn't sound like much, but honestly, for what it is on the surface, this movie is really fun. It's really entertaining, and that's why I would say it's similar to Dazed and Confused, because if you remember that movie, it's the last day of school, of high school, going into a lot of these people's senior year, and then you have a group of kids that are also on their way to be freshmen in high school as well. So it's kind of an interesting dynamic, because in that one you have people about to leave one school and go into another. This is entering into a whole new realm because it's college. So, the stakes are different and everything is going to be completely different than what you're used to in high school and everything. But this movie would not work if it weren't for the cast. And the characters in this movie are definitely some characters, because these are the type of guys who, honestly, in real life, I probably wouldn't really associate myself with too many of them, because they all are kind of jerks, assholes, and dicks to each other. And for some people, that's going to rub them the wrong way, and this movie may come off as something that they may not like just because of the type of guys that are in this movie. But everybody here ends up in some way being kind of a lovable loser, and you end up liking a lot of these guys because there's a lot of charisma in the actors present here. And there's a lot of actors who maybe at the time weren't all that big, but have recently gone on to be bigger and better than what they once were. In this cast, you have people like Tyler Hoechlin, who at the time was on Teen Wolf. So he was pretty big-ish at the time, but now he's been Superman, and he's done so many other things since then. So to see him in a movie like this is real interesting. You also have Wyatt Russell, who at the time was mostly known for maybe like 22 Jump Street, but now he's part of the Avengers. He's a Thunderbolt. He's in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and he's gone on to be in bigger and better things as well. And then you also have Glenn Powell, who now is kind of like one of the big new leading, actors in Hollywood. And to see him in a movie like this is crazy. And I remember watching this movie back when it came out in 2016 and thinking, this character, this guy right here, I want to see him in more stuff, because I wasn't real familiar with him at the time. This was probably the first thing I really took notice of him. And he's arguably one of the best characters in the movie by far. So to see him go from this to where he's at now, it's pretty remarkable, because, it was like planting the seeds of what would become, what we know Glenn Powell as now. But elsewhere in the cast, you have other guys like Blake Jenner, who is the main kind of the central character in the movie. Even though this is more of an ensemble piece, you do have his character Jake, who is basically your main character and kind of what the audience follows. Unfortunately, he's kind of the weakest link in the bunch. Not that he's bad by any means. He just doesn't come off, quite the same way as some of the other guys in the group, but that's no fault of him. It's just these other guys have a bit more charisma and a little bit more going on for them. So he kind of gets overlooked in the cast, despite the movie mostly kind of centering around him. His character, though, is the only one that actually has some kind of a love story that goes on with the likes of Zoe Deutsch, who is always great to see in something. This, I think, was kind of the first time I really noticed her in anything either. And they actually have a pretty good dynamic, even though the movie does kind of like come to a halt at a point in time, and they kind of focus a little bit more on this romantic relationship that's going on while pulling a bit away from the other guys in the group. But it doesn't really take away anything from the overall dynamic of the movie, because the movie's still very fun. It's very chaotic at times, but like the guys in the movie, it's just something to have a good time with. And every time I watch this movie, I watch it honestly about once a year. I may even watch it more often than that. It's just a really fun movie. It's something to throw on that's really easy to watch. You can even have it on in the background at times and still catch, some jokes here and some jokes there. But ultimately, it's a movie that makes you want to have fun as well. And just watching it overall, I think it's a solid time. And at the time that it came out, I think it was pretty severely overlooked. I don't think this was a massive hit by any means. It probably didn't cost all that much to make at the time, but realistically, it's not a movie that really gets brought up all that much. And in the grand scheme of Richard Linklater's, filmography, he's definitely got better movies, in his arsenal and everything like that. But this is another one that's just really solid. It's a solid output from him. The cast is fantastic. Overall, everything here works really well and it's kind of firing on all cylinders. And like I said, unless you're just somebody who really doesn't like these guys in this movie because of their personalities and things like that, then otherwise I think you should have a really good time watching the movie. And if you've never seen it, I definitely recommend it, because it's definitely something you need to check out. So that's about it for me, guys. If you have had the chance to see Everybody Wants Some, please let me know what you thought about it in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe to the channel for more reviews, rankings, all kinds of good stuff. I'll leave all my links down below on where you can follow me and check out more of my reviews. And until next time, I'll catch you guys later.